And welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton, and welcome back to the Toffee Blues podcast. It's been a few weeks, but with the season drawing nearer, we thought we'd get one out. I imagine it's probably going to be a bit of a season preview, isn't it? Especially for you, of course, as you're going to be away for the start of the season, so we'll be missing a few weeks of this. But yeah, are you looking forward to the season getting going?
Mate, do you know if the season started tomorrow, I would be pretty worried actually. And I know we're going to get into it with kind of the transfer side of things, not so much the preseason and the results side of things. I think we can get into that as well. But it is what it is, preseason. But if the season started tomorrow, I wouldn't be excited. I'd be worried that we were in for another season like we've had the last kind of 2 or 3 years. So I think that kind of really hits home just how crucial this week and next week is for David Moyes and the new recruitment team and the new ownership, just in terms of having to get some of these pieces in the right places ready to go for that Leeds game on the Monday night.
Yeah, that's it. I think I don't know. I'm feeling a little better at the moment. It's got to be said. I think this week has done a lot for a lot of Evertonians. I'd probably say. I think optimism levels are a lot higher now, given what's going around in the news. And as you say, we will get into that. But yeah, as you say, I think it's probably best to start with the pre-season. And I think last time we were on air, I made it pretty clear. Like I said, we were on air just before the pre-season was about to get underway, and now it's pretty much over. We've just got the game against Roma left. The tour in America's over, and I think I made it pretty clear that for me, the results in friendlies literally could not matter less. I think they're often not really fair reflections of how the game has gone or what state clubs are in. That is genuinely how I feel about things. So, and obviously on paper, our preseason looks like it's been very poor and cause for concern, as you say. But I do think there is a little more context to it and more than meets the eye than the results. I don't know how you feel about that idea.
Yeah, do you know that I know I totally understand what the advantages were of going over to America, being a part of that PL Summer Series, with the new American owners, with building the fan base. I don't think we've done anything that kind of like big and glamorous for the club's profile, certainly in the last few years. And we know it was always kind of a favorite destination of David Moyes during his first tenure as well, obviously with the links that we had with Tim Howard and with Landon Donovan as well. But I'll be really honest, it's changed, right? And the idea that we've played three Premier League sides already in pre-season for me is regardless of the results, regardless of the performances, I just don't agree with it. I think it's, to quote our former manager, kind of utter woke nonsense that we're playing three Premier League sides in pre-season. Having said that, I'm in the same boat as you, mate. We could have lost every game 10-0 and looked like we couldn't string a pass together. And I wouldn't be sitting here raising red flags and ringing alarm bells because I just don't think it's anything other than fitness. And maybe being a part of that summer series will benefit us in the season with regards to playing minutes against teams that are in the division that we're in. We've had to perform at probably a higher level compared to previous pre-seasons. So who knows what that'll do for the core of that squad going into the beginning weeks of the season. But yeah, I've kept half an eye on it. I'm more interested in what's going on off the pitch than what's been going on it, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah, so I completely get that. It's hard to get your excitement levels up for these games, especially with the American coverage being just utterly bizarre at times. But yeah, I mean, I think there is sometimes a little bit to be read into how we play and the performance as a whole. And I think a particular focus for me would probably be in that final game against United. And James Garner was a stand-up performer in that game for a lot of people, and he's someone who has come under a lot of criticism, especially in the last 6 months, I'd say, from a lot of Evertonians. He's someone who polarizes opinion a bit. I think some people seem to overrate him, and then other people seem to like overly criticize him. Whereas it's probably somewhere in the middle, as most of these things
Yeah.
tend to be. Um, but in his kind of deeper role, which he seems to play, I say we play with much more of a three-man midfield, and obviously we saw that a bit last season. But there was usually a Decore or an Alcaraz who was a lot further forward and a lot more focused on attacking, whereas Gay and Irabunum sat in front of Ghana were very much like kind of neutral, doing a bit of both rather than one being
Mm.
attacking, one being defensive right. And with Garner sitting behind them, I actually think it really seemed to suit him, and it intrigues me now, especially with the signing of Dewsbury-Hall, which again we'll get onto in a bit. I think it strikes to me that might give a bit of an insight into what we're planning on doing this season. Obviously, we had Njai and Alcaraz both out on the left and right side, and obviously that's mostly to do with the lack of wingers we actually have in the side right now, and McNeil struggling for fitness or whatever. Um, but I think that seems to give a good insight into me. These kind of players who aren't out and out wingers and kind of sit in a little more, Njai especially. And with the likes of Dibling or Grealish, who we're potentially looking to get in as well, similar sort of profiles. And then obviously
Mm.
you'd really want the fullbacks bombing forward there in a team like that. But that was interesting to me. That does seem to give a little insight into how we might play this season. And to be honest, I think the United performance was probably one of the strongest ones we've had in pre-season.
Yeah.
And obviously it was a fortunate goal that ended up making it 2-2. But I actually think we were unlucky not to be in a much better position at that point anyway. And obviously we could go into the penalty if we really wanted. I don't really have the energy to complain about a refereeing decision in pre-season. I'm sure we'll have many throughout the season to discuss and be enraged about. But yeah, I guess as a more overall point, obviously that I've picked out James Garner there. But were there any other players in pre-season who caught the eye for you?
Yeah, so do you know, yeah, you're absolutely spot on with the Ghana one. I wouldn't necessarily say standout performers. I'd say actually the first half of the Bournemouth game, I think probably will get written off here because of the second half of the Bournemouth game. But I think overall, going back to your point on sort of indications on what David Moyes has been trying to do, there has been that question, hasn't there, that's been asked of, well, are we playing that way because there are fixtures to fulfill and we've got a very core squad and very little wiggle room. I mean, when you're looking at some of the benches and the players and the changes that the other Premier League teams in that summer series could make versus sort of who we had to bring on, I think it speaks volumes to the amount of business that's still left to be done. But I would say, yeah, you know, I think the first half of Bournemouth was really interesting. I'd agree with you, Al. I think overall that the Man United game was the strongest of those three games in terms of overall performance, which is ultimately what we're looking for. Is, you know, a team that can fight and can compete for 90 minutes. I would say I think the disappointing aspect is probably the idea that we're not being linked with another striker right now, and that we're going to be looking at this sort of like for like change between Beto and Barry. And okay, we have seen Barry in very fleeting spells, but you know, it's very clear already, isn't it, that David Moyes' patience with Beto is probably not going to last a 38 game season in the Premier League. So yeah, maybe not so much on the positive side of things, but it's definitely a question, isn't it? It's also why it's so important for us to go out and get creative wingers, which we've been saying, haven't we, since even before last season ended? Like, we need supply into these strikers, and if a Beto or a Barry is the profile of striker that Everton are going to have next season, then they have to go out and get wingers that can play balls in. I'd say Iliman and Jai, though, back on the positive side of things, it was nice to see him in spells kind of really strutting his stuff, particularly in that Man United game. I think we didn't see so much of that towards the back end of last season. He'd recovered from a pretty long spell out with an injury, so it's nice to see in flashes what we hope we'll see kind of week in, week out at the Hill Dickinson Stadium next season.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that about Beto specifically, because I do think we do seem to be having a bit of a focus now on chance creation. And I think, Dewsbury-Hall in particular, I think strikes as someone who is going to be a real creative spark for us. And if say he is going to be playing in a bit of a deeper role, like in say the number 8 position, which it supposedly is his strongest position, then you can just imagine like playing these balls in for Beto, and for all of Beto's like faults, and I know Moyes has, as you say, has singled out his hold up play in particular. I think it is just a case of having to play to his strengths, and I think I get the impression both him and Barry can kind of do that. They're the type of players who like thrive on like racing onto through balls and stuff like that. And if you get the players around them to who can play those passes, I think for just how good Njai was last season, I think his creative output probably wasn't as good as it probably maybe should have been. I don't think he got many assists to his name at all. Um, so that's a little bit of a cause for concern. But the likes of Grealish who are being linked to would be a game changer in terms of creativity, I'd say. I think Dibling as well would also add to that. So it's definitely interesting that that's probably the idea we're going with. And as you say, I can't see us spending money on another striker, having already forked out the dough for Barry. And of course, it's probably going to hinder Chimiti's development as well, in that he's probably not going to get a loan this season that it seems very clear he could really do with. So it is a little bit of a cause for concern, but there's so many other positions that still need to be addressed, as we know. And I guess we can come on to the transfer business now, really. And I think, when we were here again about a month ago, I think we were both a little concerned about the lack of business that been done so far, but we're obviously willing to still be patient in that. And now with just a few weeks of the transfer window left to go, where would you say you're at now in terms of the business that's been done?
I think there used to be this thing, didn't there, back in the day where we were called Everlone, and I feel like we've evolved now into our final form, which is Everlinked, and I think we're just linked to every player going. And what I will say, the Dewsbury-Hall one was fascinating, wasn't it? I think arguably the best signing that we've made all summer. I think really surprising how quickly the link to medical to announcement happened. I think that was really a statement of intent of, David Moyes has been saying throughout this tour in the States, got to be quicker. We've got to move quicker. We've got to do more because time is running out. And I think that if the Dewsbury-Hall now deal is the marker for how quickly Everton are going to move for the remainder of the market, then I'm probably becoming more optimistic. I actually don't think prior to that deal going through at the time of recording yesterday that I had moved too far from where I was when we met on here a month ago. I think, yeah, joking aside, lots of links, very little materialization of deals. He said, hasn't he, he wants 10 players total. Dewsbury Hall signing number 5. Do we really think that based on who we're linked with right now, that if he gets those plus a couple more to make it that 10 total, that we think we've got a strong enough squad for next season? I have my reservations. I think that's a statement of just how depleted that squad is right now in terms of we need probably 5 strong players, and I don't know if we'll get 5 strong big names in the 5 that we've got left. Who we're being linked with is promising. I like the idea of being linked with Dibling. I like the idea of being linked with Grealish. We could do a whole podcast on Jack Grealish, I dare say, in terms of the court of public opinion and whether he's the right player for Everton. I just don't see why he isn't, and I don't think it's our money. So I think if the money bit's the only thing you're concerned with, then get over that, because it's not. We're not being asked to put our hands in our pocket to fund it. So yeah, if we get who we're linked with, if we move as quickly as we have done with the Dewsbury-Hall deal, then I think I would be optimistic heading into the Leeds game. But I just think there's just so much work to be done. And what is concerning me is we've not really done what David Moyes sort of alluded to towards the end of the season, which is we're not getting sort of linked with too many loan deals, aside from we suspect that the Grealish deal will be a loan deal. And we're not being linked too much with the free market, and a lot of these players that we thought might be coming Everton's way are going elsewhere. So I think maybe that's where I'm also a bit concerned, because I think the squad filler element is probably depleting the longer we wait. But in terms of who we've signed, yet Dewsbury-Hall, I think great deal. I would actually say, despite his kind of nightmarish pre-season performance, I think Travis is a great signing as backup to Pickford. I think that was a pleasant surprise. I thought we were sort of destined for a Fabianski or just somebody that was going to kind of come and sit on the bench for 38 games, and we've been left with a good keeper with good Premier League experience that's still going to develop. So yeah, I'd say those two would be my standouts right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you're saying there. To be fair, I think to paint it in a bit more of a positive light, I think the thing that really intrigues me, I'd say, about the Dewsbury-Hall situation in particular is, as you say, it did just kind of come out of nowhere a little bit. It was a name that we were kind of being linked to a little bit here and there, but it was I'd say it was more. I was seeing like some fans and these like kind of tacticos on Twitter and stuff saying like this is the sort of player we should be trying to get. Um, but no real concrete links with that. And as you said, it did just kind of come out of nowhere a little bit. And the thing for me is that it's not really a position of priority, I'd say, compared to other ones. I think we all know just how much we need a right winger, probably desperately need a right back as well. And I'd say a more defensive minded midfielder probably would have been higher on my priorities than an attacking minded one. And the fact that we've been willing to go out and spend this money on a player in that position suggests to me that we do still have quite a bit to play with, and that we are feeling a bit more encouraged about bringing in like good players in these positions. And then, as you say, I have the feeling still that the loans and the maybe not the free signings. Like I think the free signings you kind of have to do a bit early on. I think Kenny Tete was probably one that we were really intrigued, really interested in getting in on loan, and obviously that one fell through. But I think the loans will come later on, and it will probably be a case of what I think we're going to do with Grealish and kind of like waiting it out and waiting for City to kind of budge from their really stubborn position at the moment. Because again, for all you say about not wanting to like not considering the money aspects of it, but 300 grand is ridiculous. But there's no way we can be paying that a week for one player just to have him for a season, including and probably a loan fee involved in that as well. Um, so yeah, I have in my head that we'll address the priority positions first with like good additions, right, and spending like good money on them as well, and then hopefully the loans will fill it out a bit later. But yeah, I completely agree with you in that just how quickly the Dewsbury Hall deal got done is very encouraging, and it was the same with Asnu as well. Again, a player that kind of came out of nowhere a little bit, and that strikes me as a really good deal as well for such a talented youngster, only just turned 19 for less than 10 million pounds is really good in today's market, I think. And while I don't think he'll be a starter like for us this season, I think providing some good healthy competition with Mikalenko and offering something very different, I think is exactly what we need. So yeah, so obviously we all know that there still needs to be a lot of business done. So obviously you mentioned numbers there and what Moyes is saying as well there, but just how many signings do you think we need, and which positions would you be prioritizing?
Man, I mean, there's the question, isn't it? I mean, I think I'd stick with David Moyes' assessment that what I think we need versus what I think we're going to get is probably two different numbers. And I think five probably meets somewhere in the middle of what I think will get done versus what I think we need. I think we're going to end up in some weird domino effect when we get towards the first game of the season, where one signing, I suspect it will be Isak going to Liverpool, that will trigger this big flurry of movement where all of these other deals kind of fall into place. So I think we will kind of pick up the scraps of kind of that domino effect, I would say. I think there will be players that will sort of need clubs going into the season. I mean, we said earlier about maybe the free agency drying up a little bit. There are still a lot of big players that have gone on free agency that haven't signed for another club, that are sort of waiting, assessing their options. So I dare say we will sort of, one big move is going to trigger a lot of the other moves that happen this window. I'd like to see us get five. In terms of positioning, I do still think right winger is by far and away, and I don't think we're breaking news by saying Everton need a right winger, but it has to happen. It absolutely has to happen. And if it's not Tyler Dibling, it needs to be somebody else, and arguably it needs to be two in that position. Two of the five, I think, need to occupy that position. And I think we probably still need a right back. I think the Jake O'Brien experiment has possibly run its course or gets close to running its course this season. He did very well with what has been asked of him. I think we need someone there. arguably like an Asnu equivalent where it doesn't have to be a Kufal who we thought Everton might go and get and now seems to be going somewhere else that can kind of drop in there. If you've got a young lad that can kind of wait patiently for O'Brien to need to tuck in next to Branthwaite, or if O'Brien has a bad run against some pretty tough opposition, that we can drop someone young and enthusiastic in there as well. I'd like to see that. I don't know if that's the same thinking of Everton Football Club right now, but I'd like to see that. I suspect we'll end up with James Justin, but we'll see how that one pans out. But yeah, I'd say two on the right wing. I'd say a right back, and arguably maybe a 10. And I think that's sort of maybe the Grealish signing if that happens. But again, if that one doesn't, I do think we desperately need a 10. And then probably more boring, I think we probably need a third goalkeeper if you're going to let the young lad go out on loan again this year. And also, I think a veteran striker, if you're going to allow Chimiti to go out. I know how you sort of said probably won't be spending money there. And I agree with that to a certain extent. But if we could snatch someone on a loan deal, or we could pick someone up on a free who could just kind of sit on the bench and allow Chimiti to go out on loan. So, some of these are not sexy signings and some of these are not going to be game changers for Everton Football Club. They certainly won't be these like franchise players that the Friedkins want, but that's where I think we'll be anyway. The long answer to your very succinct question out.
Well, yeah, I mean, to be fair, I can almost see how that shopping list is being structured and is probably being formed in the Everton
Yeah,
recruitment thing as well. And it's like, well, we definitely need to do that one, and if we have time and money by the end, we'll maybe get to those ones at the end. But yeah, I don't know. It's we functioned on a small squad a lot in the last few years, and I think my overall point is that for all the concerns that are very valid concerns that a lot of our fans still have about the squad situation this season, I'm still so more encouraged by this group of players we've got now than I have been in one's got in the last 3 seasons. Um, and we're talking about it being a disaster if we don't get another 5 players in, whereas there's summers gone by where we didn't think we were going to get anybody, and we went through
true.
that. I remember that January window, the season we nearly went down, where obviously Mashiri does that mental interview where he says we're going to get a striker and then we don't. And we apparently the speculation was we were like talking to like 14 different players on deadline day and couldn't get any of them. And so we're just like, oh well, we'll bin that one off then, and it nearly sent us down. So we're on a very very different level, I think, to what we've been in, and I'm choosing to feel more encouraged about that, and I still think we're definitely looking up the table with the signings we've made so far rather than down it. So that for me is definitely the more positive outlook I'd say on things rather than maybe the more pragmatic one that you have. But yeah, I think there is still a lot to be positive about at the moment. I think the main one still has to be, I think, the stadium. I think excitement has to be
Yeah.
building for that. As we record it, we're 2 days away from seeing a full house at Bramley Moore for the first time, which will be very exciting, I think. And yeah, a really exciting day, I think. Roma friendly, the Legends game in inverted commas. I won't dare let that one slide, of course, with the players that have been announced on both sides. To be fair, it's very much a who's who for the Roma side, and I'm sure their fans are looking at us saying, "Who the hell are these players?" So it'll
Yeah.
be a it'll be a fascinating one on the day. But yeah, I'm just excited to get in there, whatever team we're putting out. To be honest, it will. I'm sure it'll still be made very memorable. Are you looking forward to it?
Yeah, I think it's always nice, isn't it? The first home sort of the first pre-season friendly that you have at home. We always seem to reserve that, don't we, for like the last one before the campaign kicks off. So it's a nice little curtain raiser for Everton. I think it'll be fantastic to see what the stadium looks like at full capacity. I very much look forward to hearing all of the moans and groans of the teething problems of like 50,000 plus going in there for the double header. And yeah, I think it would just be. I think it's gone under the radar a little bit. I don't know about you, Al. Maybe I've just been out of Everton over the summer, like a little bit. But I feel like it's sort of we had this big crescendo of sort of leaving Goodison and ending the season on a high, and the optimism of what was to come. And I think because of how much is still kind of left to do with this shopping list of transfers, it's almost a bit like, oh, kind of like don't open the doors to it just yet. Like we're not ready. We're not quite there yet. We're not at like dress rehearsal stage for Everton. But it'll be really exciting to see the game against Roma. Like good opposition. Obviously the link with the Friedkins. There's a lot to be excited about for the weekend. I like the idea of the Legends game. I think that's a bit of fun. I think Everton should have been doing those for a long old time, and now we've got the big stadium. It's a chance to do that. And yeah, it will just be nice to see Everton back on home soil and ready for the new season. And you just obviously it will give everyone a bit of a flavour for what's to come with the Brighton game at home, of course.
Yeah, that's it. I think I do kind of agree that it has gone under the radar a little bit for most people, but definitely hasn't for me. I've been like rocking about all week, really, proper buzzing for it. And yeah, as you say, I'm excited to see what a full house looks like, but probably more importantly, what it sounds like. So that'll definitely be very exciting, I'm sure. Well, yeah, I think just to round it off, as I say, I mentioned at the start that obviously this is basically your season preview. By the time we're recording another one of these together anyway, the season will be well underway, and hopefully we'll have a couple of wins under our belt, fingers crossed. But yeah, I just thought just to finish it off, I'd get a few kind of quick fire predictions off you for how the season will go.
Yeah,
Yeah, obviously I haven't run these questions by you, so feel free to think about it a little bit and give a bit more of an explanation for your answers if you wish. But yeah, so we'll start with Everton in general, and yeah, just straight up, what position are Everton going to finish in this season?
ninth.
Oh,
I
I
think
like
I
that.
think Yeah, I think there's this feeling, isn't there, that we're on the up and up as the song goes, and I don't think we will. I'll be really surprised and probably a bit disappointed if we're talking in 2 months' time as if we're in the same position we were in last season. I equally don't want to go as high as the. I've got splinters basically out because I don't want to suggest that we're going to crack a top seven. But I'll take ninth because if you look at last season, what is it? How many teams got Europe in the Premier League this season? So I'll take ninth. I think that would be a massive statement of intent to just be nowhere near worrying. I think we were so far away from worrying last season. It was absolutely fine, wasn't it, in the end? But I just like a season where by Christmas we know it's not a problem for us.
Mm.
So yeah, I'll go ninth.
Yeah, like that. I think cracking the top half should definitely be our main objective this season. But maybe, like I say, Europe's probably a step too far, I think. But I mean, if we get Grealish, who knows? I think that it could very well depend or hinge on our recruitment. Um, who will be our top scorer? I mean, obviously, you probably only really got the players we've got now to play with, but potentially we bring someone in who would suddenly take this role. But what do you reckon?
Oh, I'll go and Jai. I think you can't sort of look beyond him, and I think the other players that we've got in that squad currently, I wouldn't be putting any money on them. So yeah, I'd go Lemon and Jai.
Okay. Who will be our surprise hero for the season?
Oh, um, I think your man that was signed yesterday at the time of recording. I think yeah, Keenan Dewsbury-Hall. I think he'll be creative. I think he'll probably have to play a number of different positions, as is always the case for an Everton player and a David Moyes side. And I think he'll probably show what Leicester fans saw in him on a more regular basis than he did for Chelsea in a very bloated squad. So yeah, I think he'll be our surprise hero of the season.
Okay. Um, what will be our best result? Is there a big team you could see us getting one over on, maybe? What do you reckon?
Like let's just make the comments on this nice and positive and say that we will beat Liverpool in the new ground. That'll be our biggest result, I think, of the season.
Yeah, that would definitely be a very welcome one, I'm sure. Getting, as I said, the first win in the derby. Absolutely. We'll go to more general now then, just to round it off. So, who do you think will win the league?
Well, I can't say who I actually think because we'll get roasted in the comments. So I'll say Man City. I don't think they have two bad seasons back to back.
Okay. Which three teams do you think are going to go down?
I think Burnley will definitely go. I think Leeds will go, but I don't think all three will. I think Sunderland have recruited really well in terms of like that mixture of like unknown entity and experience. So I think Brentford's. I might be missing something here with Brentford, but I think they've been absolutely ripped apart with Frank going and the players going and Keith Andrews coming in. Again, I might be missing something, but I think they'll go.
Okay, and then just to finish it off, which team will surprise everybody this season?
Mm, Yeah, I mean, well, unobjectively, I guess Sunderland. I think they will do a lot better. And bearing in mind the last two seasons, the three that have come up have gone down. So I think Sunderland would be a surprise package if they stay up comfortably. I think if we weren't on an Everton podcast right now and we're talking about Everton finishing ninth, I think Everton will probably surprise the most people next season.
Yeah, I was gonna say we definitely have to be a contender. I think, as I said, especially if you think we're gonna break the top half, I think that would definitely raise a few eyebrows. But yeah, so we'll leave it there. So thank you very much for joining me as ever, mate. I hope you enjoy your holidays.
Cheers, man. Yeah, I hope by the time I come back, we're 9 points clear at the top of the league, and we've signed seven players. That's where I hope we're at by the next time we speak, Al.
Yeah, fingers crossed, mate. Fingers crossed. But yeah, so yeah, we'll leave it there. Please leave a like if you enjoyed. Comment below, giving your thoughts ahead of the season, what you've made of the signings so far. You can give your answers to the same questions Harry's just answered if you like, if you're feeling brave. Subscribe to the Toffee Blues channel for more Everton content, and we will see you in the next video. Up the Toffees.